World-renowned heavyweight pro wrestler Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer and his brother Brent Wayne Sawyer present the top pro wrestling school in the United States, right here in Sacramento, California.
I'm Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer. Do you got what it takes? Do you got the heart, the desire, the determination, the charisma to become a professional wrestler? Then if you do, I've took time out of my busy schedule, out of my worldwide tour, to come here to Sacramento, California, and have the biggest training camp in the United States. If you've got what it takes to become a pro wrestler, I want you to call right now, 344-5588. You know, it don't get no better. It's not easy, it's hard. So when you come and you see the Mad Dog, I want you to know when you walk in the door that you're gonna be sweating and you're gonna feel a lot of pain and a lot of agony, but you're gonna come out a better man.
And welcome back to Retro Wrestling Games Presents. I'm your host, Lex G. And with me, as always, is Matt Riley. How are you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm feeling thundery and lightning.
All right. And your pants?
Yes, that too.
Nice, nice. So today's episode, we're going to take a look at Legends of Wrestling 2. Legends of Wrestling 2 was published by Acclaim Entertainment and released on November 26, 2002 for the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo Gamecube. It was also later released on the Xbox on December 5th, 2002. Legends 2 contains 24 wrestlers that were not in the first game, but it does exclude Rob Van Dam because he had already signed his WWF contract. Now, there are 65 wrestlers on this roster, which all legends and completely insane for the time, again, with a roster this large. The gameplay is basically unchanged from the first one, so it does have those kind of clunky Warzone controls. Not as bad. The controls, I wouldn't say they're good, but I wouldn't say that they're bad. They're average to mediocre at best. You know, what are you going to do at that point? Now, in terms of the roster, which is the most important thing when you have a Legends game, an unlicensed game like this, are as follows. Abdul the Butcher, Andre the Giant, Andy Kaufman, Bam Bam Bigelow, Baron Ron Rasky, Big John Studd, Bob Backlund, Bobby the Brain Heenan, British Bulldog David Boy Smith, Bruno Sammartino, The Nasty Boys, Dr. Death Steve Williams, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Killer Kowalski, Mil Mascaras, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Owen Hart, Rocky Johnson, Roddy Piper, the Steiner Brothers, Sid Vicious, Eddie Guerrero, the Grand Wizard Ernie Roth, Hulk Hogan, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, the Road Warriors, Bret the Hitman Hart, the Iron Sheik, Mr. Fuji, Terry Funk, Don Morocco, Jerry Lawler, George Animal Steel, Tony Atlas, Ricky Steamboat, Nikolai Volkov, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Tito Santana, King Kong Bundy, Coco Beware, One Man Gang, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Harley Race, Dynamite Kid, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, Brian Pillman, Billy Graham, Eddie Gilbert, Rick Martel, Ivan Koloff, Ivan Putski, Bob Orton, The Sheik, Kerry Von Erich, Fitz Von Erich, Kevin Von Erich, Mike Von Erich, David Von Erich, Dory Funk Jr., Sabu, Captain Lou Albano, and the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. They literally pulled out all the stops in terms of this roster. It's amazing. They have this many quote-unquote legends in a game. Again, no one's ever come close to that, and this amount of wrestlers on this roster itself kind of exceeds, you know, the wrestling games that are around the time, minus your Fire Pro. Now, the interesting thing about this game is it has a career mode, which is very interesting. It's territories. So there's a Northeast territory, there's a Southeast territory, so on and so forth, and each of them have a promoter, and each of the territories have kind of storylines, which you can pick a path. So if you are trying to date the promoter's daughter, that's a storyline that you go into, and yada, yada, yada. If you're Lawler and you go to Memphis, you automatically go into a feud with Andy Kaufman. So they did take their time with this. Again, the people who developed this game were definitely wrestling fans and were very knowledgeable about professional wrestling, so that was nice to see. The visuals are solid, especially for the time. There's nothing offensive about the visuals on this game whatsoever. It did receive a game rankings. The Metacritic gave it a 62% and 62 out of 100 for the Xbox version, and 61% and 59 out of 100 for both the PlayStation 2 and GameCube versions. So again, those are pretty decent scores. They're basically 6 out of 10, average. But if you're a wrestling fan and you're wrestling from the 70s and 80s, there's no reason not to get this game, just for the people who are on the roster itself. Like I said, the gameplay is not the greatest. The controls are not the greatest. But again, when you look at this roster, it's definitely something that you would want to get. So Matt, I know you saw a clip of this. What are your thoughts?
I liked it. It was interesting. I was watching it, and there was a tag match between Snuka and Steamboat against the Road Warriors. I liked that the action's not too choppy, but I mean, there are certain aspects of the game. Like one of the matches had a three-way triple threat match, and of course, those two guys are locking up. The third guy's kind of like standing there, like back and forth, back and forth. But most part, most of the action wasn't choppy. I like the wrestlers, looked like they look, how they remember them. And I like the fact they have the bloodletting. So the ring turns blood as it gets more bloody.
Yeah.
Snuka had like a baking tray or something. He smashed people over the head with it. And at the recap of the match, it's like, Steamboat and Snuka win. They had the picture of their two faces on one side. And the Road Warrior Animal had like a bandage around his head and bandage over his nose. He was all smashed up. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I liked it.
And to get even deeper, the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, the UK version, had special UK legends. So it had Kendo Nagasaki, Big Daddy, Mick McManus, and Giant Haystacks, which is a little treat for our friends across the pond. Another cool thing about this game is that every wrestler has 4 costumes, so you can change them, and they're all basically appropriate too. So you have like Tito Santana and his El Matador, and it's actually really, really neat the way they did it. They're all unlockables you get from cleaning stuff during the career mode, which you can use to unlock stuff. It's a weird kind of gambling system. Again, that's kind of clunky, but they're trying to be innovative, but it's still not necessarily working the way they want to. So, but I think overall, this is definitely a solid. Again, if you're a fan of old school wrestling, there's no reason not to get this game. Again, you can find it real cheap on the internet right now. I think I got mine for about $5. Again, I had the GameCube version, but it was also released on PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. Now, when it comes to legends of wrestling, I think that term gets thrown out kind of willy-nilly here and there. There's only really, I would say, about 10 legends overall in professional wrestling. You can start off with your Jim Lundis, and you go on to Lou Thez, and then Buddy Rogers, Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin. Those are your legends. I mean, you can always include a Roddy Piper or Andre the Giant if you really want to, Bruno Sammartino. Those are all names. Sometimes, when people are like, Tony Atlas is a legend and Don Morocco is a legend.
Right.
Yeah, for some people, maybe, but in the overall scope of professional wrestling, that term gets thrown around like it's nothing. So what say you, Matt? Who is your favorite legend and why?
Oh, boy, favorite legend. I would probably say Ric Flair, because he's one of those guys I consider a legendary performer. Although he's contemporary still, but he's still around. Oh boy, I think it depends. I mean, if I'm going that way, as a legend that's retired, I'd say Abdul the Butcher. Yeah, because he was just. I mean, he wasn't. He's legendary, and it's like the myth becomes a legend. He's a fork wielding madman, and you knew what you were going to get with him, and it was a wild show.
And sometimes you get extra stuff like hepatitis C.
Well, that too. Yeah. That's legendary. Still.
The cool thing about Abdullah is that he went everywhere for the exception of the WWF. But you would see them in all these promotions, and they would bring him in, and they would act wild and crazy. Usually feuding with like a Blues of Brody, or I once saw an Ox Baker versus Abdullah Butcher match was completely insane. Ox Baker fucking killed the dude. Actually, 2 dudes in a ring.
That's right.
The goddamn heart punch. Surprised he's not in the game. They're missing somebody. Ox Baker. There you go. For me, in terms of legends, and a lot of people would probably hate to say it, but for me, it's definitely Hulk Hogan. With Ric Flair coming up in a really close second. Again, if you said, hey, you need to watch one person's matches for the rest of your life, it would probably be Ric Flair, but in my opinion, overall impact on professional wrestling, For me, it's the Hulkster. He definitely changed wrestling. Now, maybe not for the better in some people's mind, but I think, in terms of mainstream popularity, and he did have good matches. I think he gets shitted on way too much in terms of, his quote-unquote work rate. Because when you got him in there with, like, a Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, those matches are really good. When he wrestled Terry Funk, those matches are really good. Now, some people say, hey, that's Terry Funk and Paul Orndorff. Yeah, that's probably true. But it's not like he had bad matches with, like, King Kong Bundy or the Big Boss Man. Those matches were pretty solid for what they were supposed to be. You have your Earthquake come in, and he's a giant monster for Hogan to slay. That's the way he was booked. Again, our smart Mark friends will say Hogan in Japan, and of course Hogan in Japan was a different guy. He's doing fucking insecurities and fucking and elect takeovers and shit like that. But again, you have to wrestle different in Japan because it's motherfucking Japan. Even Dusty had a higher work rate in Japan than he did in the States because he couldn't get away with that bullshit in Japan. None of these guys really could. In terms of like programs, memorable feuds, you got Hogan and Piper, Hogan and Orndorff, Hogan and Andre, obviously, Hogan and Savage. You can even throw Hogan and Warrior there. Because I think the build-up for that feud was really good, although post-Warrior shit kind of got off the rails. For wrestling in general, not only the WWF, but wrestling in general, and then, Hogan was never the same past 1990, although he had a decent one with Slaughter in 91, which is a feud I enjoy, but most people do not enjoy that. Slaughter as the Iraqi sympathizer feud that he had, but I thought it was really good. When you're 9 years old, you think war is cool, but clearly it's not. Nice to see Andy Kaufman in this game. I think this may be his one and only video game appearance, and to have that kind of in Memphis kind of style, with him feuding with Lawler. It's completely insane. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on Lawler versus Kaufman and kind of the overall impact of that?
I loved that feud. There was a tape I used to watch, and I had a lot of highlights of that particular feud between the David Letterman thing and the pile drivers he gave Andy Kaufman. I always think, like, when mid-jump, was he like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
But it's very enjoyable as a feud because Kaufman just played a heel, like, really well.
Yeah. He was intrigued. He used to do that on his, like, some of his comedy shows, where he would just walk up there and just be a jackass to the fans to get them to react. And he loved to have the ability of having the crowd in the palm of his hand and making a crowd react. He was someone, if he was 6'3", 230, in good shape, he probably would have been one of the greatest heels of all time for a long time. But that was awesome. They, I had him with Jimmy Hart, and they kind of did the deal. And the David Letterman thing is completely insane. No one knew that was going to happen, not even David Letterman. And for the longest time, David Letterman had banned wrestlers from his show. Like, he was never going to bring them back. And I think people forget how big of a star that Andy Kaufman was at the time. Taxis on national broadcast television. I don't think he really did any movies. I don't really remember him in any movies whatsoever. But still, he was a huge star. He would randomly show up on Saturday Night Live for no apparent reason and kind of sing the Mighty Mouse thing and do the Elvis thing on there, which is really sweet. But so it's awesome to see him in the game here. I really like that movie Man of the Moon. Jim Carrey, I thought was a fantastic movie, although maybe not historically accurate, but an awesome movie nonetheless. I wonder, you got Neil Mascaris in the game. I wonder if he doesn't sell him again at all. He can't pin him. He doesn't lose matches ever. Fucking Neil Mascaris.
Yeah, that's a good gimmick to have.
Yeah, fucking dick.
What's your gimmick? I don't lose.
No job. No yob. That's what he used to say. No yob.
No yob. So you do is you say to him, it's a 2 out of 3 falls match. Then you pin him first and then end the match.
I think he wasn't going to fall for that bullshit.
Oh.
That's happened to guys before. I'm pretty sure that if I remember correctly, I believe one of the NWA title changes, I don't know if it was Rogers and Thez that happened. But no Lou Thez in the game, which is interesting. And no Buddy Rogers. I recently saw a match from I believe 1963, maybe late 62. This is right before Buddy Rogers won the NWA World Championship. And this is for Jim Crockett Promotions, which is probably the earliest footage of Jim Crockett Promotions. It's then fucking black and white in the whole fucking nine, right? And it's funny to me because they have some wrestler on commentary. I don't really remember who it was. So they have a wrestler on commentary with their regular announcer, and Rogers has the guy he's wrestling in the figure four. He won't release it, and he's like kind of mocking the guy at the commentary desk. And the commentary guy finally gets up, whoever the wrestler was, and brawls with fucking Buddy Rogers in the ring. And it's so weird to see that in black and white in the early 60s. Because when you think about black and white wrestling, you think of like Thez, mat work for a fucking hour straight. And it's like no punches, no drop kicks, just, mat work. That's at least the impression that most people have of wrestling from the 50s and the early 60s. And to see like an angle, like, oh shit, they're doing, like someone did a fucking run-in in this fucking match at the end. And I was wondering, I do wonder when that switched. Because Lou Thesz was really protective of that nonsense. It's like, wow, you can't do that shit on my show. So he wouldn't have midgets on the show. He wouldn't have women wrestle on the show. He took his stuff really serious.
Right.
Which I think hurt him in terms of like being a draw. Because, people did like the midgets and people did like having women wrestlers on the show. And I just wonder when they made the switch from your grappling wrestling to what they call Texas wrestling, which is like complete madness and lunacy and guys running in and guys cutting down, on the microphone, really, everyone, although there were heels, and even Rogers as a heel wasn't a wild, out of control heel, he was kind of more of just a douche. But I wonder when they made the change to like a Terry Funk type madman, crazy heel. I always wonder, number one, why they made that switch, and was it just someone pushing the wrestling style forward?
Yeah.
Because you've watched a lot of the old-timer matches, especially in the 50s, you're not seeing a lot of punches and kicks, and there's not a lot of brawling. As we get later on into the 60s, you see a lot more brawling, and then you see it's wide open by the 70s. And these guys are going like bananas. And I'm just curious about when they made that switch over. And was there like an event that happened, or someone really kind of just had a brawl and it drew big time money. So, because once someone does it, everyone else is going to go around and copy it anyway. So
right,
that's kind of the lay of the land.
It was. I actually mentioned that we talked about one of our last shows, and our other shows, I should say. And I was talking to somebody online earlier and mentioning that the topics you talked about certain things being overdone, and he was like, "Oh no, if it works, it works." I'm like, "Yeah, but when you watch Empire Strikes Back, spoiler alert, and Darth Vader tells Luke the truth about them, that's a shocking moment."
Mm-hmm.
All right, but if you watch a lot of films now, it's like, ends up they're always the daughter or the son. It's like, no, I'm your father, I'm your mother, I'm your brother. Like, okay, I know soap operas did it to death. Like he's your evil twin. But I always feel like certain things get taken too far. Other times they take a really good idea or turn or angle and just beat it to death. And
they did that in the territories. And I'll tell you the one angle. Now, I watch a lot of territory wrestling from the late 70s and early 80s. So it's something that I watch constantly. And the one thing that I see all the time in every promotion is that you have the NWA champion come in. He wrestles your top babyface to a draw. And then he brings out the heel manager. He's like, I'm not wrestling this guy again. I will put a bounty on him. $30,000. Jimmy Hart, $30,000. Make sure you and your crew destroys Jerry Lawler. And they did that same thing in every territory with every champion. I've seen it done with Race, and I've seen it done with Flair. Where it's like, I'm not going to be wrestling this guy. I'm going to cut you this check. The top heel or the top heel manager destroy the babyface, and then they move on to that angle, right? And then the champion leaves and has to come back for another 3 or 4 months or whatever. But they did that, like, literally, I was watching, I was like, again? They're doing this again? Again, you didn't have TV's Cross, so it worked. Until they got on fucking TBS, and they took them forever to figure out they can't book the way Dusty had an issue where he still booked like he was in the territories and couldn't really understand how to book for a national television audience ever. That's why we saw a lot of those Dusty finishes because that's what they did in the territories.
Yeah,
you need to book like Vince and have make sure they go home happy every single time for the most part.
Right. Well, I think when I think of like territories, one of the things they used to do a lot of was they would, like when I was on the circuit, they would book to draw them back for the next show. So that meant as a face, I was going to lose, but some controversial fashion, and I'd cut a promo after the match and say, you son of a bitch, I'll see you next month right back here, and this time it's going to be no DQ. You're not taking me by surprise, and that would set up the next match. And then the idea was always that when that face finally, when the heel got their comeuppance, either the face had some other challenge pop up or, some sort of way of keep the fans coming back. Yeah. And I think in a way, they even today, they book trying to do that sometimes, but they don't do it often enough. Like sometimes you watch and you go, well, who's going to be the fifth member or who's going to be the contender? Okay, I'll watch next Monday to see what happens.
I'll tell you this. If they had booked Hogan and Andre to a draw in WrestleMania 3, the WWF would have went out of business.
Oh. Yeah.
Imagine that shit. Or they did a fucking Dusty finish on that where Andre wins the belt, but not really because he threw Hulk Hogan over the top rope and the referee saw it. That would have really destroyed their business.
Yeah, the fans had to sit through a Dusty finish where Dusty pulled the top rope move. That's been banned. My God. The fans are outraged. Yeah, that would just not have been
or they had to stop it because of blood while Hogan's slamming him or something. Imagine the riot at the fucking Silverdome. They would have torn that shit apart.
Yep.
You can't do that. You can get away with it every once in a while, maybe on TV, but when it's like, all right, when it's fucking Starrcade, I'm looking at you, Starrcade 88, by the way, or Great American, it was at Great American Bash 88. I'm looking straight at you, fucking dickhead. It's Luger and Flair, by the way, folks. For these guys don't get the reference, it's Luger and Flair, Great American Bash '88, which me and Matt often lament as a kick in the balls, and we're still not over it. At Starrcade '88, Flair wins with the feet on the rope. Fuck you guys. Yeah. way to end your main event on Starrcade.
Yeah, I think the fear they had the fear was always there. It's the same thing with remember for years submissions never happened.
Yeah,
like there were no submissions. Everyone was afraid of being the guy that gave up. Like submission holds should be like. I don't think anybody I know hasn't grown up and given a friend a figure four leg lock. Like I gave a friend of mine once. He was like, "Oh, the abdominal stretch, that's bullshit. That doesn't hurt." So I gave him an abdominal stretch, and he was like, "Ah." So I really cinched it in, like really kind of hurt him. But that's the thing is that they're afraid to sell the damage, but that's how you make people go in the seats. Because if you know that move is going to be devastating, and they hit the champion with it, well, that champ's done. Unless they're like I will say this: I hate when champs have got a finishers. That's a pet peeve of mine from way back.
I agree. If you hit someone, you finish. That's the match. Period.
Right. And unless one of two things happen, either the person who hits it is incapacitated. Like I've seen those where they hit the finisher,
like a desperation pile driver, and the guy rolls out in the ring.
Right, like that, or like it hits a DDT, but like when they fall back, the guy flips over and they're still both down, like because even so, and then you're selling the damage of the match.
Right.
Okay, I buy it. Or one of those fluky things where the guy's foot's in the bottom rope. Like okay, and it was a match I used to watch. I think it was Tully Blanchard, and he used to do it as a gag almost. I bet you. But it was just like, 1, 2, no! And then my favorite referee of all time, Tommy Young, used to sell that so well. Because he'd sell the pain of like, oh man, he has the match, the guy thought he won, but I'm sorry, his foot was on the bottom. Like, this, like Tommy Young was the best.
I seen the opposite with that. I think it was Greg Valentine. So, Greg hits a move, I think it's Valentine. The wrestler's foot is on the rope. 1, 2... Greg sees it and takes the foot off the rope 3.
Oh, okay.
So So the ref still doesn't see it, but Greg sees it, and he's the one that takes the foot off the rope, which is amazing. I've seen that done with a manager, too. I think it's Bobby Heenan. He's like, shoves the foot off the rope. Like, oh, no, I did it. Amazing. All right, so guys, Legends of Wrestling 2, again, I do recommend this game for your old school wrestling fans out there. Again, the roster is huge. Definitely worth a play, and if you have a PlayStation 2, GameCube, or original Xbox, highly recommended. Again, for an unlicensed game, they went to the nines and really got everyone they possibly could. And for those of you who are fans of Trapped, the soundtrack is basically all trap songs. So there you go. So I want to mute the entire thing. Thank you, YouTube. Copyright infringement laws. Yes, sir. All right. So we are officially out of time. So for Matt Riley, I'm Lex J.